Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Community English class. Today, we will discuss one interesting topic. Can you guess? The topic is public speaking. So, let's start. Now, what is public speaking? What ideas do you have? The public speaking is something when you are speaking on something in front of the public, in front of a big audience. So, you need to be very confident, you need to provide good speech, and you need to present yourself very well. So for this, you need to learn some tips. If you know some tips, you can be a very good public speaker. And the main thing is practice. You have to practice a lot. Okay, now let's start. Just a second. So we're going to learn how to give a good presentation. So good presentation and public speaking is quite similar. Now, how to give a good presentation? You have to think about the details in advance. While you are giving a presentation in front of an audience is always stressful. Thinking about such details as the location of the presentation, equipment, materials, timing, your appearance and outfit will help you avoid nervousness. So you have to think about the details in advance. So while you are presenting something, you need to think about the topic in advance so that you can be so much confident when you are speaking. Thinking about such details as the location of the presentation, equipment, materials, timing, your appearance and outfit will help you avoid nervousness. So it's very true. Like if you have already thought of the location of your presentation, you know to whom you are going to present, you know the equipment, like what things you are going to present, materials, timing of your presentation, your appearance, your outfit, all these things will help you to have already a plan about that. It will obviously help you to avoid nervousness. Second thing, you have to do your homework. But effective preparation requires consideration of the following things. Like you can ask yourself what the presentation is all about, its title and its goal. Think about who your audience is. You have to figure out what your main message is. So what is the first point? You have to ask yourself what the presentation is all about, its title and goal. So maybe you are going to speak about the modern education system. So first you have to think like what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the modern education. So you need to also think the title of the presentation and what is the goal of your presentation. What is the outcome after your presentation? Like what are the things people can learn? Then you have to think who your audience are. If your audience are the school children, your presentation will be a little bit different. If they are college student, it will be a bit mature. And if they're the like teachers, if you are presenting in front of them, then it will be totally different. So according to the age group, according to the audience, presentation changes. You have to figure out what is your main message. Now you have to think about the structure of the presentation. the opening, the main part, and the summary. So one presentation has different parts. So you have to think about the opening, about the main part, and also the summary. You have to make it easier for the audience and yourself, so you have to use simple language. You have to prepare yourself for questions. So you like while you are presenting something, excuse me. So the audience may have some question like based on your presentation. So you need to be ready for that. You have to think about questions the audience might ask. So it's better to think about some questions that the audience may ask you. Like, what are the possible questions the audience may ask? Usually, an orator has a maximum of 15 minutes to present. So make the presentation simple and have no more than 20 slides using a font that is legible from a distance. So if you are presenting in the PowerPoint, you can make at least 20 slides, not more than that. And also you have to use a font size which can be visible from a certain distance. Don't put large blocks of text in presentation. No one will be interested in reading it. People prefer visual material. So in presentation, you have to keep visual material other than keeping long text. So think about images, graphs, videos that support your idea, but don't overwhelm the audience with too many visual aids. So as you have joined late, we are presenting this topic, how to give a good presentation. So we have discussed that for a good presentation, you need to think about the details of the presentation in advance. You have to think about what will be good for your audience. You have to do your homework first. You have to ask yourself that what is the presentation is all about, what is the title, what is the goal, and what is the main message of the presentation. Also, you have to think about the structure like the opening, the main part, and the summary. You have to make easier, you have to make the presentation easier for the audience. So you have to use simple language. Now you have to ask yourself some questions so that you can be ready for the questions what the audience may ask you. And you have to keep some visual aids for the audience because audience will be interested if you show them some more visual aids. So you have to introduce yourself and state the theme. So at the beginning of the presentation, it's important to introduce yourself, giving your full name, position, and company you present. So while you're presenting, you need to introduce yourself and who you are and what you are presenting, what is your company. Some people also include their contact information on the first slide. That's in case you want someone from the audience to contact you after your presentation. After the introduction, don't forget to state the topic of your presentation. So at the beginning of presentation, it's important to introduce yourself, your full name, your company. Then some people also include their contact information in the first slide. So that's in case you want someone from the audience to contact you after your presentation. So maybe you are a professor, you are presenting something. Now, if you show your contact details in the first slide itself, people will may contact you if they want from the contact side. After the introduction, don't forget to state the topic of your presentation. Now, after the introduction, you must say the topic of the presentation, what you are presenting. Like, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming. The topic of today's meeting is, so you can, these are some like introduction lines which you can use. So you can use like, hello ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming here. So today we are going to present like this. You can start. Otherwise, you can start. The topic of today's meeting is. Then you can also start like, let's get the ball rolling. So these are some hints like which you can use in your presentation, or you can ask, shall we get started? This way you can start. Question answer period usually takes place at the end of the presentation. So you have enough time to deliver the main message of your speech without being interrupted by multiple questions. So question answer period generally takes place after someone is presenting. Any question, any query? Are you talking? So you should have some time for the question answer, and you have enough time to deliver the main message of your speech without being interrupted by multiple questions. So first you have to deliver your speech. After that they can ask you what are their queries. If you want the audience to ask question during or after the presentation, say so. So you can use these phrases in the presentation while they want to ask question. Like you can tell them there will be a Q&A session after the presentation. Please feel free to interrupt me if you have any question. You can tell that. I will be happy to answer your questions at any time during the presentation. You can tell that also. This way you can tell them. Make a clear transition in between the parts of the presentation, like using transition words and phrases in English makes your presentation look smooth and easy to follow. Useful phrases in English. I would like to move on another part of the presentation. Now I would like to look at, for instance, in addition, moreover. This leads me to the next point. So this way, while you are going to from one slide to another, you can use these sentences for presentation. So next is, you have to wow your audience. Your audience should get attracted towards you while you are presenting something. If you are not excited by your presentation, your audience will not be excited either. First, you have to be excited, then you can make your audience feel excited about that. When presenting, you should plan to wow your audience. Use adjectives and descriptive words they will help to attract the audience attention and make your speech more vivid and memorable. Okay, so audience has come to listen to your speech. You need to make it more attractive and memorable. You have to use full phrases in English. And the product I present is extraordinary. It's a really cool device. This video is awesome. This is an outstanding example. The product I present is extraordinary. It's a really cool device. The video is awesome. This is an outstanding example. So you can use these phrases. You have to make your data meaningful. If you need to present numbers or some comparative analysis of algorithms for integration, use some visuals to present it. You can use charts, graphs, diagrams to make your data meaningful. And remember, the pie charts are good for representing proportions. Line charts to represent trends, column, and bar charts for ranking. So while you are dealing with some numbers, People may get bored with that. So you need to show some visuals so that they can understand easily. Like line charts, bar charts, pie charts, something, some options are there. So you can use that. So you can make phrases like, here are some facts and figures. The pie chart is divided into several parts. The numbers here have increased or gone up. Numbers change and go down. Numbers have remained stable. This is the way you can tell your audience. So what we have discussed, you have to introduce yourself and tell the theme, and you can use these phrases like, hello ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. The topic of today's meeting is this. You can keep a Q&A session. Next, if when you were like, you must have one Q&A session because audience have queries. So you must tell them that please wait, we will have one Q&A session at the end of our presentation. Then you must tell this thing while you are having a transition from one side to another. You have to use these phrases. Next, you have to wow your audience because you have to make your audience very much excited about your presentation so that they feel your presentation more informative. And you have to make your data meaningful. When you are dealing with algorithms, you have to make some pie charts, bar charts, some visual aids so that the audience see it. Then you have to summarize the presentation. So at the end of the presentation, you have to briefly summarize the main points and ideas, provide the audience with your opinion and give them a call to action. Let them know what you want them to do with the information you have shared. So end the presentation by thanking all the listeners and inviting them to Q&A. You can use these phrases like, let's summarize briefly what we have looked at. In conclusion, I'd like to recap, I'd like to sum up these things. You can summarize. Then you can practice. You have tried rehearsing your presentation using the above tips. And you can practice in front of a mirror or with your friends, if your parents, anyone. And the more you practice, you feel better. So while practicing, try not to use crutch words like ha, so on, like. These words, if you can avoid them, it's good. Next, I have given you few examples like how you can start the introduction of the presentation. So you can note it down. I'm giving you some time. And good morning or afternoon, everyone, and welcome to my presentation. First of all, let me thank you all for coming here today. Let me start by saying a few words about my own background. As you can see on the screen, our topic today is this. My talk is particularly relevant to those of you who this talk is designed to act as a springboard for discussion. This morning or afternoon, I'm going to take a look at the recent developments. This way you can start your presentation. These are some examples, you can note it down. Vandana, R. Shravanti, where are you? Unmute yourself. Karishma, unmute yourself. Sahiti, R. Sanjita, unmute yourself. So these are some introduction. Uh, Now you can use this sentence in your presentation structure. In my presentation, I will focus on three major issues. So this presentation is structured as follows. The subject can be looked at under the following headings. We can break this area down into the following bits. So you can write, in my presentation, I will focus on three major issues. This presentation is structured as follows. The subject can be looked at under the following headings. We can break this area down into the following bits. This way you can go to your presentation structure. Timing, it will take about 20 minutes to cover these issues. So when you are introducing, you have to say how much time it will take. Handouts, does everybody have a handout, a copy of my report? I'll be handing out copies of the slides at the end of the talk. I can mail the PowerPoint presentation to anyone who would like it. Don't worry about taking notes. I have put all the relevant statistics on a handout for you. So when you are presenting something, maybe some people will want handouts, so you have to tell them, does everybody have a handout? I'll be handing out copies of the slides. I can email the PowerPoint presentation to anyone. You don't worry about taking notes. I have put all the relevant statistics on a handout for you. So like this way, you have to continue. Now coming to the question part, you have to tell them like this. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If you don't mind, I'd like to leave questions until the end of my talk. There will be time for a Q&A. Now you can also sequence the phrases like this way. So my first point concerns, first of all, I'd like to give you an overview of. Next, I will focus on. Then I will go on to highlight. Finally, I'd like to address the problem. Finally, I'd like to raise briefly the issue of. So this way, you can sequence your phrases. So these are some presentation techniques which we have seen today. So you can practice like this way in front of the mirror, and you can start creating presentation. First, you would like you should have one good proper planning, like what you are presenting, and you should also have some idea like what are the questions may come. So I want to show you some video. Just a second. Please listen to the video once, like see how you should have to present.
Hey practitioners, today I'm going to be teaching you, with the help of my friend Dana Bluin, the top 7 tips for a great presentation. Dana Bluin is an entrepreneur currently living in Bangkok, Thailand, where he is a co-founder and CEO of a company called Mango Labs. Anyways, here's some of his tips. We all have to give presentations at different points in our life. That might be for school or work or an organization that you are involved with. No matter where we give the presentation or to who, we want to make sure that it has the impact on the audience and that it's memorable. These are 7 tips that are going to ensure that you nail the presentation and leave a lasting impression on your audience. Number 1, know your audience. The first step in preparing for any presentation should be to get a better idea of who your audience is. Knowing your audience will allow you to understand the type of content they are going to be expecting with regards to depth and technical detail. You wouldn't want to give the same presentation to a group of high school students who are interested in entrepreneurship that you would to a room full of startup founders and CEOs, because their expectations and level of understanding will be on completely different levels. Dig up as much as you can about who your audience is, what industries they work in, and what positions they generally hold. This allows you to really tailor the content and delivery of the presentation in a way that will really make it stand out and be memorable. Too many times people give killer presentations at one venue to a group made up of their core audience and then bomb on the same presentation to a different group because they didn't make the changes they needed to better address the new audience. Just because you kill it in that you want them to. However, if you structure your presentation in a way that each idea, each section builds on the one before it, you help your audience connect with the content and create logical links between the concepts. This is a great way to make more complex ideas easier for the audience to understand and remember. Number 3, use visuals. Another great tool to cement those ideas in the mind of your audience is to use visuals like charts, graphs, and infographics to illustrate and communicate a concept. As many as 65% of people are considered to be visual learners. So if you don't take this approach in your presentation, you are going to ignore the vast majority of the population. Using an image, regardless of if it's a picture, graph, or chart, can be a much more potent conveyor of information and has a much more powerful impact on the audience. A single image can convey so much information. Just like the old saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words. It really is. Think of the impact this can have when explaining data or results in a presentation. If you had to stand there in front of your audience and go through every data point verbally, it can get bad quickly. And this is much more common of an occurrence than you might think. But if you're able to visualize that data for your audience with a graph or chart, you instantly make it much more understandable and memorable. Showing someone 200% growth with a graph is much more exciting than explaining it while they're looking at the raw data. For example, if I took away the screen of this video and all you saw was black, it wouldn't be near as exciting. Number 4, repetition is your friend. Having a bit of structure in your presentation goes a long way in keeping the audience engaged because they can follow the information from step to step. But even more than just structuring the flow of the presentation, you also want to build in repetition. This encourages people to remember the key points of the presentation and helps it stick, which again makes it, and you, more memorable. A classic way to go about repetition is something Dana learned early on when he started his public speaking career. Another speaker at a big regional tech event came up to him after a talk and complimented Dana on his delivery and the depth of the material, but asked why he didn't use more repetition. Dana was a bit stumped because he never really thought about that before. The other speaker suggested that Dana start telling the audience what it is he wanted to tell them, just to give them a brief rundown of the key points. After that, move right into the body of the presentation and tell them exactly what was highlighted at the beginning, but obviously with more detail and extra elements that you add in to make the presentation stick. Then end the presentation by telling them what you just told them, reminding them of the key points and a brief summary for final repetition. Using this technique helps to reinforce the main points of the presentation at least 3 times, at the beginning, middle, and end. Always be honest with your audience, because if you're not, they will know and you will have lost all credibility. Tip number 6, be relatable. Being relatable is actually one of the most important factors of your delivery. You want to be someone that your audience can relate to, that they would feel comfortable with talking to. Even when giving a talk as an expert on a topic, you want the audience to feel the relation. It helps them mentally engage with your content, and remember, more relatable is to be authentic. And now that you have enthusiasm, whenever Dana gives a talk or presentation, he practices, he says for hours. Dana wants to make sure he has the timing down, that he knows every over and have them give some feedback on your presentation and make improvements based on their feedback. No one gets it right the first time, but practice will get you towards perfect. With these 7
So what you saw in the video, we have already discussed. Practice, you have to relatable, visual aids you have to use because there are 65% people who are visual learners. Like we like visual things. So you have to use all these things in your presentation. So try to make some presentation, practice it, and obviously you can nail it, you can do better. And if you have any query, you can ask me now. How was today's class? Okay, thank you for your attention. We are concluding the session here.